More on the impact of falling birth rates. William Lee joins us now live via Skype. He's the chief economist at the Milken Institute. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So obviously a lot of people wondering then, how soon could we start seeing the economic impact of these lower childbirth rates?
Well, some countries are already seeing it. As you mentioned, in Europe, you see the aging population, Italy, France, and even Germany. In China, you're starting to see that probably most noticeably in the next 10 years. One of the things we have to remember is that the key to a country's growth are its resources, and its most valuable resource are its people. And so you see countries in advanced economies like Japan, where the aging population is really starting to affect its productivity and its ability to grow. And right now, there's a huge imbalance in the growth rates between developed countries and less developed countries.
So then talk about the short versus long-term impact of falling birth rates.
Well, the short-term impact is going to be one of finding the social patterns in which more and more people are going to be working, and there are fewer and fewer children in school. So you'll see a lot of institutions having to have empty classrooms and other sorts of institutional changes that are going to be brought about by an aging population without children. What you see also are migratory pressures. A lot of countries where there's a lot of young people looking for jobs are going to be migrating out of these countries into the countries like the older populations in Western Europe as well as the United States. And so there's huge migration pressures that will be arising from the pressure of people just looking for jobs. I think in the next 10 years, we'll see a rise in the number of people coming out of North Africa and Middle East coming into Europe, and there's going to be already see a large migration of people from Latin America coming into the United States.
And when you have such an economic shock to the system then, what has really been revealed about the lack of financial security that the pandemic has caused or revealed?
Oh, the financial security is going to be a real problem as time goes on, because the pandemic has already shown that our social institutions for supporting income are lacking, especially here in the United States, less so in Europe. What we're going to see is that as the population ages, we're going to have more and more working people to support a larger and larger retired community. And unless the younger people, a smaller number of working people, are becoming more productive, we're going to have a difficult time supporting such a large population of non-working people. In Japan, one solution has been to replace people with machines. Robotics and the use of artificial intelligence and other kinds of machinery have been used to try to substitute for the lack of working age people.
So then what about the economic issues? You mentioned Japan, but if we look at the issues stemming from COVID in developed versus developing countries, what are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at people who need people to take care of them. As people age and their health declines, they're going to need more in the way of services, medical services, social services, and so on. What you find in the emerging economies, where there's a lot of young people, are people who are ready and available to do that. But the trouble is, you have immigration policies that are not well suited for large flows of people coming from the emerging markets into the developed countries. The United States is suffering from a lack of cohesive immigration policy, trying to legalize the immigration. You see already in Sweden, where the huge influx of Middle Eastern population has caused all sorts of social tensions in Sweden, where they're feeling as though being a Swede no longer means the same as it did 50 years ago.
And so obviously we're looking at some long-term impacts from this pandemic. So then what are the main economic factors that typically affect people's choices to have children? And are we seeing any efforts by governments or the private sector to really address those issues?
Well, one of the key considerations is whether women continue to work in the labor force or not. Working women find that it's going to be a costly decision to have a child, because it means taking a setback in their career progress and in their earnings. We're going to have to see policies be more friendly toward people coming in and out of the labor force, both mothers and fathers, to raise children and to have a much more flexible workforce. What we see now with COVID is the ability of some companies to really become much more flexible in terms of switching their work locations. People don't always have to go to the office to do work. And so work at home has really shown a new possibility for allowing this kind of flexibility. And I'm very hopeful that we'll find similar kind of accommodations to let people have their children and at the same time preserve their careers.
And just very quickly, we have about 15 seconds. Any examples of countries that have successfully incentivized their populations to have more children after a recession?
Well, actually, you see that in China. The one-child policy was gotten rid of, and the implementation of much more child care facilities is in the works. Here in the United States, we also see the income tax credits and other child care legislation being put on the books just to be able to accommodate a more flexible dual working couple career.
All right, thank you. Always good to have you on. William Lee there, Chief Economist at the Milken Institute.
Thanks for having me.